Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. As I come in between my bushes here, we had an ice storm, much like the rest of the world. Oh my gosh. I feel for my friends in Texas. You had the ultimate ice storm. We had a short-lived ice storm, but it brought us gifts from Mother Nature because it knocked over a lot of trees and branches. It was actually pretty dreadful, but I loved the branches, and so I had walked out that day to get a cup of coffee, you know me and my coffee, and I had walked out to actually buy a cup of coffee rather than make it myself, and there was a tree that was half down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look how gorgeous this is, and it was this. And so I came running back to get a saw and loppers and help, and went running out back to the street and dragging the tree back home. And today you get to see some of it because it's so much fun. So today is springtime in the studio. We have lots and lots of cool flowers. I have my coffee. We've got the team on hand. In here we have Teacher Michelle. She's with you on YouTube today. And then Teacher Marisa was with you on Facebook today. And then Parker is on tech and also Facebook and YouTube. So we've got all three of you here. Then, virtually, we have David monitoring, making sure that everything goes well. And we have Caledonia with us on Facebook, greeting you all, and Susie with you on YouTube. So we've got a full house. Kind of fun to have everybody back on hand. Teacher Carolyn is not here today. She is busy doing a wedding photo shoot with Teacher Jerry. So they were up at 4 a.m. this morning to get ready and get out. So, oh my goodness. Who are you? Where are you from? Take a moment. If you're on your phone, you can turn it sideways to get bigger. Type in where you're from, add your tulip. If you are watching us on your computer, you can go to full screen. If you're on your TV, I'm already larger than life. But take a moment and introduce yourself. Start the collaboration because we really do want everybody together, all of us. And we all learn from each other. So let's get started. We've got some flowers. While I start pulling things up here, I know that Michelle and Marisa are kind of getting things together. Is there anything I need to know already, or should I just keep poking and doing?
The YouTubers are popping in. So far, we are very international. We have Australia, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and South Africa.
Oh my goodness. So YouTube, welcome. I'm so glad you're all with us. It's been fun to go back through comments and see how worldly you all are. I started by putting out just a blue vessel. I'm working with all cobalt vessels today. It just spoke to me when I started gathering things for springtime. I thought, you know, the cobalt is the best. So putting one branch in, which goes way above your screen, but it's so beautiful I couldn't cut it shorter. And I have 3 huge branches of this that I took home too, sitting at my house. And yes, the petals shed, they do kind of snow. These are actually pretty straight. Well, there's some snowing for you. But you know, that's some of the beauty is that they do give you that snowfall effect. And I still like it. I don't even worry about it. Trick with the branches, we're going to be doing education today too. Trick with the branches is when you put them in water, if you'll break them and tear them so it gets that really jaggedy edge. If you can't get it to break well, whittle it so that you're exposing the raw wood underneath the bark. And then when you put it into the water, it actually will drink far better because you have that all exposed. So again, it's a break and tear and or whittle so that you get that nice and clean, and then tuck it right down in, making sure you get it fully into the water, because if it doesn't get down to the water, it will die instantly, guaranteed. So you got to be a little careful. Michelle, what's going on?
Well, we have a first timer with us today from Ireland. John Paul is joining us.
Hi, John Paul from Ireland. How wonderful. Glad to have you. You know, the world gets into the different time zones. And so what time is it for you in Ireland? I mean, I always wonder, because all of a sudden people are joining us and it's 3 a.m. or it's 7 a.m. or it's 11 o'clock at night. What's our timing in Ireland? That's interesting.
I'm still catching up over here, Leanne, on Facebook. It took me a second to find the live stream on Facebook, so I'm catching up.
I love it. Well, you know, it's interesting because everybody's internet is a little slower or faster. So sometimes we're going and you're coming in and you're about 10 seconds behind us, so it can be tricky. But you know what? Wherever time it is for you, you can catch us all. If you end up buffering and spinning at some point, refresh your screen and know that you can always go back and watch it in replay, and then you don't have to worry about buffering. But it's always fun live. Anything else going on?
2 things. John responded that it's 11 p.m. in Ireland.
11 p.m., okay.
And then Jill wants to know, would that technique work with lilacs as well?
Jill, yes. That's an excellent question, Jill. Good job. When you are dealing with a woody branch, any type of a woody branch, so coming back to my flowering plum, my favorite thing, anytime you have a woody branch, if you break it, tear it, whittle it, it will do better. Guaranteed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts on that. The other thing, if you have a very thick branch, like this one is thicker, doing that whittling. And one more thing, taking a pruner or a clipper and cutting in the center, just like that. It opens up even more drinking ability. So yes, your lilacs, your viburnum, all your woody things, if you will do that, it will last much, much, much longer. So, any other woody branch questions?
Not yet.
How about anemones? Trying to pick all kinds of different spring blossoms so that we could talk about them. The anemone is beautiful. It looks so fragile, so delicate, almost paper thin. But when they're in season, like right now, they're actually surprisingly sturdy. The biggest thing, they don't like deep water. This is the deepest I would ever do, 1 inch to 2 inches of water. If you fill the vase up to the top, the stem will rot and then they will die. So they're a good one to make sure that you extend them. So like this vessel, I wouldn't want to put this full of water and then put the stem down in. We want to keep the stem up higher and not so much water. So how would you do that? That's always the challenge. Okay, so I want my stem up, but if I drop it in, it's going to go down, but I want it up here so that it's not buried in the water. And that's where you can use a design technique. Maybe take an individual fascia leaf. Want it to be a perfect fascia leaf, so I'm kind of digging through here. There we go. I know many of you say, oh, but your flowers are always so much nicer than ours. You know what? We buy them from the same places you do. Mostly, they all come from the same spots. But I do take time to hunt for the most perfect piece sometimes. I know. That's why I had this in the vase first, because I hunted for the perfect one that fit that vase and planned ahead on you. But if I take my fascia leaf and I just work on molding it a little bit, because I want it to be horizontal. I don't want it to be upright. So just molding it like so. Then using a tiny bit of bind wire. And you know, I had that one little piece. I might go ahead and use this too. I think it'll all fit in there. We'll see. Then thinking about how I want it to be in the vessel. I need it to be long enough that it is in the water, but high enough that it's not buried. So I just adjust, add in my little bit of flowering plum, and then using just a small bit of bind wire, lash these together. So that's another thing you know. You learn that woody branches, you want to whittle. You learn that anemones, don't like to have their feet too wet. They want just to have a little bit of water. So when you design with them, you need to keep them up above. And I'm whittling that piece of the branch so that I make sure that it's going to go. Give a fresh cut to my anemone, to the fatsia, then thinking about how the face is going to look, and then just sliding it right down into the vase. And the leaf then keeps it up so that it doesn't fall down in. And I can bend it a little bit and adjust, but just letting it sit there. Make sure that it looks good. So then I've got my branch and my anemone. And I need something else in here. Let's see, what other little flower would be fun?
Leanne, I am finally caught up over here on Facebook and can do some shout outs when you're ready.
Okay, what's going on?
Okay, the tulips I see out there are Sharon, Ashley, Karen, Joanne, Wayne, Beatrice, AJ, Robin, Kathleen, Dolly, who is a new Tulip Tribe member. Penny's out there. We sent out her order today. Francis. And let's see here. We have Stephanie that is joining us for the first time live. And then let's see. Who else do I have on here? I have Elisa, who loves your scarf. And Heather, Maria, Kathy, Nicole Scott, Via Florial, and Michelle, who just signed up today for basic class. And then also Marjorie, who's going to sign up tomorrow.
Wow. You know, it has been so crazy busy around here because so many of you are submitting your lessons because flowers are starting to be available for the springtime. It's so grand. And you need that little bit of flower therapy to chase away the winter blues. And then many of you are taking advantage of the fact that the price is still at the 2020 pricing, doesn't go up until March 1st. And so you're wanting to slide in at the lower pricing. So grand. How wonderful is that? I am very excited. Talking to you now about jasmine. Here's another one for you to learn to look at. So this is jasmine vine. Has a little bit of fragrance, not super strong because it hasn't opened out yet, but it's nice and drapey, very, very, very feminine. And what I loved about this is it gives me a little variation then of that movement and line from the branches. So I can manipulate it, bend it a little bit, and let it come in. And jasmine, it will actually keep opening. So if you get it in and it's really tight buds, don't panic. Just make sure that you put it in water. Make sure that you've got deep water for jasmine. It doesn't like to be thirsty at all. So if you don't put enough water in, it's just going to die, which that's going to make you not happy. But by letting it drape, it mimics the lines of the flowering plum and gives a little bit of dynamic movement. Just simple. So jasmine vine, deep water, anemones, shallow water, flowering plum, whittle it down, and then you get to have it lasting well. So what else is happening?
Well, Jill had a question on the woody stems again. Is there a good way to tell when you should cut or purchase viburnum?
Oh, at what stage should
Yes.
you purchase it? Viburnum, we happen to have a pretty branch of it right here. Look at that viburnum. I mean, is that, whoa! Did I really make you loud? I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Now everybody's running around like, oh my gosh, was there an accident and did somebody hurt themselves? I didn't cut myself. I didn't break the vase and there's no blood. So we're good. Okay. But David's probably going, oh, Leanne, why did you do that? And I'm really sorry, people.
Because the viburnum's so big.
It is so big and so lush, and I was so excited, and I just knocked things over. But if I was buying viburnum fresh, I wouldn't buy it this open. This is older viburnum, This is fresher, newer viburnum. So you want to buy it at this stage so that it will bloom out to this stage in your possession. So that's the way to think about it. Viburnum, get it when it's tight and then let it bloom. Now at the same time, if you get it with it too tight, sometimes it won't open. So you've got to kind of do that balancing dance. This is a good one because it has some that are tight and then some that are starting to open, but they're not as open as that one. Now, again, it's a woody branch, so you want to whittle it to get it to drink. That's going to be very important. Make sure that it will last. So I'm going to set these aside for a moment because I don't want to knock them over. And once is enough. We don't need that.
And Leanne, since we're working with Jasmine, we have a first timer that's joining us, and her name is Jasmine.
Perfect.
I love it. Welcome, Jasmine. I'm glad you found us. We have a lot of fun on our Wednesdays, and today we're talking spring flowers, and I'm going through care and handling, identification, best practices, and I've got Marisa, Parker, and Michelle all here asking questions away. Parker, what have you got?
Vicky had a good question. She wanted to know if there's a book or a resource you recommend that tells you which flowers are available when in which seasons.
You know, there's not a great book anymore. Everything has kind of moved forward to digital and online so that they can update it on a timely basis. The benefit of that is that you are able to access it digitally from anywhere, anytime. The other problem with it, though, is that some things might say it's available, but they're talking in South America, Southern Hemisphere, or it might be available Northern Hemisphere. Our availability is almost year-round for most things now, so it's kind of tricky. I use Sierra Flower Finder for many things. I'll search through there. And then I will use florabundance.com because they have a search by a season feature, so you can kind of look at what that season is. And they're North America, so it works for us. But depending on where you are, I know we have a lot of people in Australia and New Zealand and Iceland. I don't know if Berga's with us. Berga got her hair cut today and donated all of her hair to the Locks of Love type. I don't know if it's the same name in Iceland, but she looks so cute with this tiny little haircut now. It's pretty much fun. So Berga, God bless you. You are just a wonderful, wonderful soul.
And may I add to Berga's here? So since she had such a successful 2 holidays in February, she's taking her staff out this Sunday for a luxury dinner.
Oh, that's wonderful, because I know they're crazy busy with Women's Day. Women's Day is coming up March 8th, I believe it is. And here in the U.S., it barely makes a blip. It's not a big deal. But I know for the rest of the world, it's a huge deal. Huge, huge, huge.
And Leanne, also, too, speaking of the crushing and the booming, you scared John's cat. And also, with Berga as well, they actually started the morning with a, let's see, it looks like a level 5 and 7 earthquake.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you know, the world is just scary sometimes. Very scary. Wow. Iris, another wonderful spring bloom. This is what you want to see because it's so beautiful and big and bold. This is what you want to buy, because then it's going to open and be big and bold for you. Plus, if you're trying to put it in a box or wrap it in paper to get it home with you, this one's going to get damaged potentially, whereas these won't. When I buy Iris, I want it to be as tight as possible. That way it opens on my time and I can protect it. If I'm buying it and I need it to be open after I get home and I'm ready to design, kind of going like this, and then pop it. And you can actually just tap it on your fingers, and it pops right out. It's like magic, and you're just like, oh my gosh, isn't that the coolest thing? Now, if you don't want to force it, go ahead and design with it in a bud form, because it will still open all by itself. It's not that you have to do that, but it does allow you to get it to be open and beautiful. And then if you were doing sequencing, think about flower school, you know, we've used that term, sequencing, little on the top, big on the bottom. You could divide them out like so. In fact, we're getting ready because school starts on Monday. Oh my gosh, it's the last class in the classroom with the old 2020 pricing. So I think I have 2 spots left. I don't know. If you want to try to sneak in, give us a call because we do have a few spots left. But the class starts on Monday, and Monday we'll be talking sequencing as you make your arrangements, which is kind of fun. With this one, I thought I would use the iris and nestle it in with the viburnum. So I thought it was kind of fun that you guys asked about viburnum just as I was getting ready to use it. And what I've done then is sequence the iris, and then I'm tucking it into my hands with the viburnum. And there was a hollow spot in the center, so it was just perfect. Then to control that so that I don't have to worry, I'm going to give it a little bit of a cut. You know, it's funny, Marisa, that they mentioned my scarf, because today, I don't know what my problem is, but I was just having an issue. I couldn't dress myself, I couldn't think myself, so I'm putting the scarf on, taking the scarf off, putting the scarf on, taking the scarf off, and I was like, but it's not black, what am I going to do? I always wear black. And I'm finally asking everybody, should I wear the scarf, should I not wear the scarf? What about the earrings, should I wear the earrings? I felt almost useless today. I was like, really, Leanne, just get yourself dressed and get going. Have you ever had days like that where you just kind of go, I can't even figure out what to put on? That's one of the reasons I almost always wear black, because I don't have to think then. I just put on black tights, black top, and black shoes, and out the door I go. Because thinking is hard. You know, sometimes, I know that sounds weird, thinking is hard. But yeah, thinking is hard. And some days you just don't have the energy to think. And that's what happened today with my scarf and my earrings. It was like, oh my goodness. So Michelle.
So Lindsay had a question about spring flowers in general. Do we have to be concerned with the water? Can we just use it out of the tap? Do they need special foods?
You know, that's a great question. There are some foods that are designed specifically for spring flowers. To be honest, I have found that for our purposes, we just use the standard flower food, and it seems to work fine. It's something you'd want to test with your water. When it comes to making a judgment call about the water itself, I always tell people to think about your drinking water. If you have to filter the water you drink, then I would recommend filtering the flower water. Because they don't want to drink icky things, just like you don't want to drink icky things. But for the most part, here in the Pacific Northwest, we have really fabulous water, and so we can just put that water in with our flowers and it's just fine. But that's something you'll want to think about. I know when I visit my in-laws on the farm, their water has been treated because it has so much minerals and such in it. And so I actually use bottled water when I do flowers there, because I don't like to use their water. It doesn't let them live as long. So that's kind of a problem.
Well, I have more tulips to give a shout out to, Leanne.
Okay, let's hear this.
They just keep coming in. Okay. So we have with us also Gracie Dawn, Cindy Julie, Michael, Jessica Joe, Aubrey, Casey, who submitted her first submission today, Dina, Stephanie, who, by the way, Leanne, loves your dangly earrings, and Leslie, Cheryl, Judy, who's local and says daffodils are blooming over there in Tigard.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
And Karen and Janet. I'm sure they'll start popping up here soon.
You know, I was looking out, you know, we have a tiny, tiny, tiny garden in front of the classroom here. It's actually like 3 foot by 3 foot. It's really more just a tree bed. But I have put little violets that bloom out there. And I noticed today I have 2 violets that are blooming. And it just warmed my heart because they're violets from the homestead on my dad's side of the family. And on my grandmother's, what would have been her 100th birthday, She had passed away, but it would have been her 100th birthday. It was also Easter. And so my brother brought violets to everybody from the homestead, and it was such a special thing. And I'm like, well, I live in a high rise. Where am I going to put it? And I thought, what the heck? I'm going to put it right out front here. Hopefully it will live. And it did. And I'm so excited. And they're blooming right now. So I don't have daffodils yet, but we had violets, which was so fabulous. Okay, so I've got a little bit of heather that I added. Heather is another one of those woody branches, so you want to give it a little bit of a break. It will drink better. Without a break, it just dies a little too rapidly, and when it dies, it starts shedding all over, and that's kind of irritating. And I don't, the flowering plum shedding doesn't bother me because it makes me think of pink snow and how exciting that is. The heather shedding just makes me cranky because it seems like pink crumbs, not pink snow. So I'm wiring this again, and then I'm going to give it a cut and shorten things here. And I think, we'll see if I've judged my height well or not. I may have to shorten it a little bit more. Let's see. Yep, got to shorten it a little bit more. I didn't do quite enough on there, so let's get that down.
Leanne, does adding ice to the water for bulb flowers help them at all?
Okay, people have started putting ice in some things, especially if you go to garden shows and such, you'll see people putting ice into the containers. I don't find that ice really helps when it comes to a flower arrangement, so I wouldn't do that. I think the main reason they do it at garden shows and such is so that they don't end up with water running all over the place, so that it keeps it contained and then it just melts into the landscape. So no, I would not put ice in your floral designs. That probably wouldn't be helpful. But I have heard of people putting ice in their votive candles, because then it melts before the party starts, and then when you light the candles, that water is in there so the wax doesn't get stuck to the side of the vase. So that's another new little tidbit. So I've got my hand tie now tucked in. So I've got Viburnum and heather, iris that you saw me pop out, and then the other thing I could tell you about iris that's sort of fun, making sure we stick with flower school here. Whoops, stand up straight there, little puppy. I may have to put something else in there to hold it steady. Well, bad mechanic. Let's see. There we go. Just give it a shove in there. The other thing that you might not know about iris is that many times there's a second bloom on the inside. So if you let this one go ahead and bloom, and then it starts to fade and dies, rather than take the whole stem out and throw it away, take the faded and sad looking bloom, which this one isn't, but I'm going to pull it off anyway. Pull that out, and then on the inside, I'm going to pull this so you can see, on the inside there's another baby that actually will grow out and be a second flower. What? And so you just got to wait for it. But if you pull off the dead one, the second one blooms out. Now, not every single one has that, so don't go, oh, mine didn't. But some do, and it's kind of exciting to have that.
Leanne, Jess has a question. However, I'm going to elaborate on the question as well. But she's asking if spring flowers or any other flower or design in general, is it okay to break the 3 greens rule?
And how do you want to elaborate on that?
She just said if spring, when you use spring flowers, is it okay to break the 3 greens rule? I elaborated on just with any flowers and designs in general.
I love it. Okay, so the 3 greens rule is Leanne's rule. So that's not a real rule, but it's probably one of the most important ones because it's Leanne's rule. And yes, you can break it sometimes. And I'll be honest, sometimes I break it by going more, 5, 6, 7 different greens. And other times I just do the fascia by itself. And I think that's it. I don't have to have more. So a lot depends on what you're creating and how you want to think about it. Yeah. So let's talk about daffodils. We've been working on the pink side and the purples. Let's talk about daffodils here for a second.
Leanne, we have another first timer on YouTube. Vita is joining us from Maryland.
Hi Vita, welcome. I'm glad you found us. It's so fun to get the tribe together. These daffodils are just so sweet. Look at that color. I love them. You'll notice they're in vessels by themselves. I didn't mix them in with other flowers. Daffodils secrete a sap. And if you were with us the other day when I did a Wednesday live on daffodils, you know that sap is deadly to other flowers. So you just always want to keep them separate for the first couple of hours. Basically, if you hydrate them for 2 hours, then you can mix them. Now, many daffodils don't open very well all by themselves, and this is one variety that needs a little bit of gentle love just to help reflex it out, and then they'll be pretty. If you don't reflex them, they just sort of stay closed and then wither and die at that stage. Here, they'll be pretty and open and then wither and die. That one's too soon yet. It needs to be a little more mature before I can do it. But you can see how much prettier they are just with that little bit of love. So like so. And the tulips, we can do the same thing if you want to change them around a little bit, taking them and then gently popping the petal back and reflexing it. And when we talk about tulips and daffodils, the biggest thing is, it's like the iris. You want to buy them when they're really tight, when they're very closed. That way they open for you and they last the longest. So a tulip like this is the perfect stage to purchase and buy, because it's going to go ahead and open out like these others, but while you can watch them and enjoy them. You can see these have been growing out to the side because they've been trying to grow to the light. They were stuck in the flower cooler where the light was on this side, so they were trying to grow to that. Tulips are phototropic and geotropic, meaning they grow against gravity and they grow to the light. So knowing the characteristics of flowers allows you to design with them well. So kind of fun to pop them open. They look like a totally different flower once you get that done. And they are so pretty. Does not shorten the life. That's always a question. Now, those of you that are on YouTube, you may notice that we have playlists available now. And if you're on Facebook, at some point pop over to YouTube. I think you'll be surprised to see what's going on there, because Susie's been busy creating playlists for us. And we have a new one that she just made public, so it's brand new. The tribe in their private group got it last week, and it's a spring design inspiration playlist. And it's just a whole series of videos that we've created for inspiration using spring flowers. So it was made live today. So if you're on YouTube, you can just go to the Spring Floral Inspiration, Spring Design Inspiration playlist and watch through so many new things. You also see the playlist for Tulip Tuesday is in there, and there's some wedding playlists, but we're bringing them out a little bit at a time as she gets them all set up. And I have a new one that will be out on Friday to the private group. For those of you that are actually part of the Tulip Tribe, you'll have a private playlist. I'll send you the link on Friday, and it's all on pricing. I know that you guys all ask that question over and over, and how do you price that? So we have a playlist on pricing coming up. Now this flower is not a spring flower, but I thought, isn't it beautiful with the tulips? Oh my gosh, it's a rose, as you can see, and it's creme brulee, and it opens out just splendid. It's absolutely gorgeous. I think this one is gonna have to go home with me because it's so stinking beautiful. It's like, oh my gosh. But I could take and just kind of clean it up a little bit. It's a thorny bugger, so this is one You might want to use your rose gloves on because it's a little bit, it's a tough one. And that way you can take the thorns off without hurting yourself. And just kind of squash them down so it's doable. And cleaning them up. So I want to do a hand tie with these. And while I prep these, what other questions do we have about spring flowers and spring design?
Well, oh, real quick. Okay, well, this is not a spring flower question, but this is a question that may be great for our Tulip Tribe and people that are in our certification courses. I have someone asking if dendrobium orchids can be kept in the cooler or are they cold sensitive?
Let's leave that question for the tribe, then we'll make sure it gets answered. So does a dendrobium orchid go in the flower cooler or is it temperature sensitive? And if it is temperature sensitive, what does that mean? So yeah, all these things that we teach in class, it's so funny. When we do the lives, we just kind of review what we've already taught. So those of you that have been in flower school, you can go, oh yeah, I remember they said that, oh yeah. And if you want more, you can go back to your lessons. If you're an online student, you can look it up on your videos. If you were in the classroom, you could look up in your textbook and go, oh yeah, that's right, I remember that now, and kind of catch yourself up. We've got so many classes going on right now. Springtime is a busy, busy time at flower school. I know we've all been working this last few days because we're just trying to catch up and be ahead of you guys because so many of you are submitting your online lessons and then many of you are getting ready to come join us in the classroom. It was fun because I had a class on Tuesday and Shelley, one of my students from so many years ago, came and it was a birthday treat for she and her daughter. They came and her daughter, when I knew Shelley in class, her daughter was just little, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and now she's a grown-up adult person. It was kind of fun to catch up and see them, find out what's been going on in their world. If you are thinking about joining us for flower school, now's the time. Don't forget the prices go up on March 1st. So if you can register before March 1st, get yourself in there, lock in the 2020 pricing, and that way you save a little bit of money, which is good. So, got these things together. Now I'm going to go ahead and get ready to create a hand tie. Maybe clean a little bit more of the leaves off.
I have an answer about the dendrobium.
What have you got there?
Julia says it's a tropical flower. It doesn't like to go below 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Good answer, and I love that you put it in Celsius and Fahrenheit for our people. When we teach 55 is the coldest that we want it to go to. So it actually does better if you leave it at room temperature or if you have a flower cooler that is set for tropicals, which some stores, if they do a lot of tropical work, they have a separate cooler that is not as cold that holds their tropical blooms. So, yeah, good job.
Leanne, do you have any advice for Natalie for tulips in a wedding bouquet since they grow and move?
Very, very good question. With a wedding bouquet, well, actually any bouquet, but wedding especially, when you're dealing with tulips, they do continue to grow and they do try to move to the light. So when you make a bouquet, the key is to keep it in the dark and keep it cold. So create the design and then maybe put it in a cooler with the light off. Or if you can't turn the light off, put a black plastic bag over the top of it and then set it in the cooler. If you keep it in the cold and in the dark, it will stunt the growth so it won't do as much. Now, there are wives' tales and practices where people will take the tulip and they will pierce the neck with a pin. And I have taught that over the years at times, I'll be honest. But you use a pin and then you would take your tulip and you just pierce straight through the neck. So you can see I've got the pin going through the neck and that will stunt the growth. The reason it's stunting the growth is it's creating a wound So it's injuring the bloom. So yes, it does stunt the growth, it does not stop the growth, and it does shorten the life as well. So I don't recommend doing that, but I won't tell you that it doesn't happen out there. So something to think about. That creme brulee rose is just absolutely amazing. So I'm just gathering it and some of the ruscus in my hand, and then coming in with more of the roses. And then thinking about daffodils, since they have already hydrated, I can go ahead and mix them now. It's safe. It's not that you can never design with daffodils and other things. It's just that you have to let them drink first before you mix them with the other stems. Just tucking them in.
Leanne, let's see, Nikki is noticing that you're taking a lot of the leaves off the tulips. Is that how they should be processed?
If I'm doing them in a hand tie like I am here, I take the leaves off because the leaves would be too bulky down below. When you do a hand tie arrangement, no matter which flower it is, you want all the foliage above your hand, and below the hand needs to be totally barren. So this time I needed to remove those leaves so that I didn't have that coming out and creating a problem down here, because that would not work well. So yes, that's what I would do for a hand tie. It's not necessary to do it for every arrangement. It depends on how you're using the arrangement as to whether or not you would leave that or not.
Leanne, for daffodils, Shelley is mentioning that, you know, they have to be processed separately so the sap doesn't kill the other flowers. However, what happens when you recut them and design with them? Do you have to separate them again?
No, once they have hydrated and the sap basically has lessened because it's been drinking in water and draining out the sap, then you can cut them and design with them, and it's not a problem. So it's just in that first processing where you have to make sure that you keep them separate. Then once they are hydrated and happy, you can mix them and match them and not have any issues. It's really not a problem.
Here's a fun little tip. If anyone is wondering, like, oh, should tropical flowers go in the cooler or not? Rick has a great tip. He always sings, feeling hot, hot, hot.
Well, that would do it, you know? And so if you ever have a question, just call Rick and ask him to sing to you. And that takes care of that. I think that's a good idea. Actually, some of us don't sing that well, so I don't think that would be me, because I would scare you if I sang, so that wouldn't be good. So I'm just continuing tucking in my blooms. You can see I'm randomly placing things and spiral and turn, spiral and turn. So I'm being very consistent with my placement.
Leanne, I noticed you were just picking the leaves off the roses. Is it ever okay to use a scraper or a rose dethorner?
You know, some people do, and I strongly advise you not to use a rose stripper or dethorner. It just makes the flower at risk for not lasting as long, because you potentially damaged the stem, scarred it, and if it's damaged or scarred, it won't drink water then well, and if it doesn't drink water well, then it's going to die, and it goes on and on and on. And so you really are best to just use your rose glove to remove the thorns, and or just manually do it, or leave the thorns on. You know, if you're not doing a hand tie, there's really no reason not to just leave the thorns alone. It's not going to hurt anything. So you're totally fine with that. So then in class, when you come in, now especially with COVID, we have to do some different things that are a little bit safer. You'll have a glove that you keep at your table, your desk, that nobody else touches, so that when you do your roses, you can have a safe way of doing it without hurting your hand. without having risk of anything contaminated. But so you have your glove, you have your knife, you have your clipper, you have your wire cutter, and you work with those things so that as you're learning to design, you don't have to worry about, oh, what do I do with that? You've got it right there at your desk. Every desk has all their own things. It's so funny. We even bought brooms so that everybody has their own broom and dustpan. We don't even share those. It's kind of fun. Marisa, what you got?
Well, Caledonia has a question. Oh, okay, so I love this question. If you wanted the phototropic flowers to grow in a specific direction ahead of time, could you trick them into a direction using, say, like grow lights?
Yes, you can. If you want to trick them, put them with the light on this side and dark on this side, and they will try to grow that way. The other thing you can do if you want them to grow sort of outward, if you put it in a vessel where it's going to lean like that, it's going to lean to the light and try to work against gravity. So it's going to kind of go this way and then curl its way back up as well. So you can do some interesting things. Now, it would last long enough for a photo. It's not necessarily going to stay that way for very long, but yes, that works. And there's a gentleman, what is his name? It'll come to me, but he lives up north of Seattle, and he does flower photography that's all natural light and full film. He may have switched to digital now, but it used to be straight film and all natural light. And he would work with flowers and manipulate them, and it might take 3 days to stage one photo to get all of the blooms to be exactly where he wanted them to be. And I've got 3 or 4 of his prints at the house that it blows me out of the water. He does a combination of flowers and fruits. So the fruit has to be at the perfect stage as well. And I talked to him, and he said, it could take a month to plan and organize the photo. And then once he gets everything set, 2 to 3 days of shooting until he gets just that perfect stage. Oh my gosh, that's just too grand, but a lot of work.
Leanne, going back to your reflexing petals, how do you avoid the petals from like splitting or tearing when you reflex them?
Excellent question. So when you're trying to reflex and you don't want them to tear or to pop back, that's the other thing that can happen, is that they just pop right back. The key is how fresh or how mature the bloom is. If the bloom is cold, if you just take it out of your flower cooler, it's going to crack more frequently. If you have it at room temperature, it will reflex more easily. If it's super fresh, it doesn't want to reflex. It's just wanting to huck in like that. So it needs to be a little more mature, and it needs to be room temperature, and then you can do it.
I don't think you're gonna get to take that bouquet home. One, the YouTubers are all saying, me. And I'm gonna beat you to it before you get out of the studio today. So.
Well, wait. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna wear tomorrow so we can photograph that.
Black?
No, I think I have the perfect skirt to wear with that.
Well, I do have to leave it long enough for the photo, because then we've got to get the photo up in the group. Well, all the different photos, they go at the group first, and then after the group sees them, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we start posting them on all the social media channels. So if you're looking for a good picture of this, they will be coming. So now I cut it, and then with a hand tie, basically, if you cut it to all the same length and then you just kind of pound it a little bit, it will stand if you pray a lot. Yeah, I know. It's like, oh! Sometimes when you do that on camera, it's kind of disappointing, because you're like, oh, I want it to stand, but sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, and then it makes you cranky. But one of the things that I love to do is just take a large vessel like this one and fill it with water. Water has already got flower food mixed in, so it's going to keep it alive for a very long time. And then just take the arrangement and set it right in. And you can adjust it to get it where you want it to be. But that's going to give it the maximum life because it's got a great water reservoir. I could shorten it a tiny bit, but I think I'm going to leave it up because I kind of like having this negative space in there. Plus my height then kind of works well with the vase. I am going to put it off center because by putting it off center, it gives more of the vase showing on this side. And I know that doesn't show a whole lot for you, but by putting it off center, it just makes it look a little more dynamic in its movement. It's an asymmetrical design done in a round style. And then if things are misplaced, you can adjust them. One thing I noticed when I look at this side, I'll turn it so you can see, the daffodil is up here and the tulip is coming down. Gives it a nice little gracefulness that drops that color down. And then I could give this a tug to the side and the side. So it changes the perspective based on where you're at. But knowing that they're going to continue growing, that's part of the fun of this design. So when we photo this, it's going to look different tomorrow than it does today because each of these blooms is going to move around and do its own little thing, which is one of the things I love. Now, if you enjoyed this one, I'm going to do one more before we stop, but if you enjoyed this one, if you take a moment, just go click the thumbs up on YouTube so that everybody sees we've got some thumbs up likes. And if you're on Facebook, if you tag a friend or share it so that it spreads the word around, I'd really appreciate it. You know, help us kind of grow in this whole super digital world. It's amazing. This social world is kind of like, how does it work? And it's because of you that it works. You're the ones that make it happen. So by the time you click a like, or if you give us some hearts, or if you make a comment, or if you tag a friend, or if you share, it helps our message grow and it allows us to do more. So I'm going to move some things around. You guys tell me what else is happening.
I have a couple people asking, what are some other phototropic flowers, like our stock and snapdragons, or anything else?
You know, Bells of Ireland is very, very, very phototropic. That's one that I see happen frequently. Snapdragons are phototropic and geotropic. Don't think larkspur is. Gladiolas, if you put them in the box, you know, they come laying down in a box. If they stay in that box laying down too long, you can know because all of them, their stems are like this, and then all of a sudden the head's going like that at the end where it's tried to grow against gravity. So I would kind of experiment and see what you find, but know that yes, there's a lot of flowers that are more geotropic or phototropic than you would ever expect. Ooh, before I add water, I'll show you. It's a vessel with a kinzon, okay? The kinzon is anchored in place using floral clay. So same as we teach you in flower school, floral clay down to the vessel. Then I can add water with flower food.
So I'm wondering, with these phototropic flowers, like what's in them or what makes them different from other flowers? Like why aren't all flowers like that?
You know, I have no idea. So, for you on the tribe, who maybe has an answer? BJ Dyer is always my go-to person. I'm like, BJ, what do you know? But what causes one flower to be more phototropic over another? One thing that I had happen once that I thought was truly fascinating, I had some ranunculus that I took home, and I didn't know this, but ranunculus keep growing. I had them in a vase in my bathroom, and one day they were longer, and the next day they were longer, and the next day they were longer. It just kind of blew my mind. I had no idea that they did that. So that's something that you have homework. Okay, here's your assignment. Your teacher is speaking. you have to buy flowers. You have to buy flowers, and you have to take them home. You must have at least one flower in your house every single day. And that way you can watch it. You can learn. And if somebody says, why are you spending money on flowers? You say, well, my teacher told me I had to. And then do it, because that's important.
Okay, so let's see. Annie Wikipedia'd it. Would you like me to?
Okay, let's hear what Annie found.
It's a few sentences, but the cells in the plant that are farthest from the light have a chemical called auxin that reacts when phototropism occurs. That causes the plant to have elongated cells on the furthest side from the light. So phototropism is one of the many plant tropisms or movements which responds to external stimuli.
Fascinating. So tropism is because of the cell structure is what it comes down to. That's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, we all learn from each other. I love it. Now, as I was working, I wanted to point out this hyacinth. In my perfect world, that's where it would be. I can't do that. Because even by tomorrow, it's going to drop over and die, because it'll kink itself and then it won't draw water. It has such a fleshy, fibrous stem that you really have to use it down very low, like so, in order to make it work. So even though you might want it up here, you can't do that. So thinking about how things react in water. So this situation where I did the anemone in a shallow dish is perfect because it doesn't like a lot of water. The hyacinth also doesn't like to be having a ton of water, but even without water, its weight is just too big, and so it's going to fall over. Then looking at my branch, thinking about how I might place this in, analyzing and thinking, and I think I'm going to click right here.
Leanne, when you're placing these stems in the Kenzon, do they go in between the pins?
When I place the stem into the design, it actually is being pierced by the pins. I'm actually letting it kind of shove into the stem itself. If you put it between, it waves around too much. And for those of you that have worked with a Kenzon, you know that they are not sturdy enough for delivery. I mean, we all wish that we could do everything in a Kenzon, but it won't make it in delivery. By the time you put this in a car and drive, it is going to fall apart and it's going to shift around because you've got that much holding the stem. So in fact, when we talk about flower school, when you're learning to place your stems and we say, make sure you get a 2-inch insertion, obviously there's not a 2-inch insertion here. And so when you go to deliver, it's just going to go and fall apart. And that you don't want to have happen. So they are going into the pin, and it's pretty, but it is something you would do for yourself. Or if you do work for private clients, you would go on site to their home to do the design. And many times you would use their own vessels, their own Kenzons, design in their environment, and then leave it, and it's wonderful. Then maybe the next week you come back and replace and go. But you would not try to do this, make it, deliver it. That just doesn't work. As much as you would want it to, it doesn't. I'm going to turn this so you can look at it from the different sides. And it's just very minimal. And for many of you, you join us for flower school, and one of the assignments is to do an ikebana design. And it's one of the very hardest ones that you do, simply because the inclination is to go back and add more material. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I need to have a leaf here, and I need a leaf here, and I need another flower. And pretty soon it's no longer the Asian influence with that Ikebana style. It's making sure that you keep it very, very, very minimal so that you have just a bit in there to finish it off, and not so much that it ends up taking over. So if I wanted to do some basing to cover my mechanics, I might take little bits of Viburnum, very short, and just tuck it in right at the base with the kins on, so that I'm still breaking the line of my container. I'm still concealing mechanics, but I'm not taking your eye up in the design with positive space. I'm allowing your eye to rest there with negative space. So that's one more little lesson for you that's just kind of fun. And those of you that have been to flower school, you've already had that lesson, so it's a review. Again, thank you for joining us today. An hour of flower fun with the tribe. I was going to bring one last little piece up here. Let me grab it before I say goodbye to you. And then next week, we're talking color. So if you have questions about color, start thinking about that, because that's the whole topic of the hour of live is color theory. So for those of you that have taken classes, it'll be a review. Those of you that are currently in classes, but maybe not all the way through yet, it'll be a preview. Those of you that are just flower lovers, it's just something to get excited about, thinking color. And I thought this was so perfect because it's spring and it's tulips. And look at the color on that. Isn't it beautiful? This was a special gift from Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. I love it. And I thought, wouldn't that be beautiful? Ultimately, it's going to end up at my house. But for right now, I thought, wouldn't that be beautiful with a simple Ikebana style design, pulling it all through color-wise. Thanks, Susie, for being there. Thanks, Caledonia, Michelle, Marisa, Parker. You guys all kept us live. And thank you for joining us. Please thumbs up, share, tag a friend, and we'll see you next week while class is in session. So next week when you join us, you'll be able to hear them on the other side of the wall, I think. But you know what? That's live. That's part of the fun of flower school. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Get out there and do